One word. One hypnotist, Chris Jones. Chris Jones. One word. 33 years of life with Chris Jones. One word, Chris Jones. And you just celebrated your birthday, which is fantastic. Did you do anything fun that is above and beyond the normal Chris Jones experience?
I performed in Burlington, Wisconsin, not far from, 27 miles from Milwaukee and Racine, and I did like 4 shows for 4 days of a Memorial Day weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I'm sick of my shows, but it was fun. My fiance, she got me a cake made of protein bars because she knows I love protein bars. And I flew my buddy in. He's a professional beatboxer from New York, and he performed with me on stage. So it was a good time.
Now, when you're doing your shtick, when you've got people up there, is it harder to do an outside rather than an inside show?
It's so hard, and because people were riding roller coasters, and there's a petting zoo next to me, and there's other shows going on, and a band going on. I'm like, focus on my voice. Just relax, like we're gonna die.
Yeah.
Just because there are roller coaster rides all over, but.
And then somebody, squirrel. So
yeah. And there's a petting zoo, and there's a child. I'm hypnotizing his mom, and this guy's trying to get hypnotized, and then this kid's calling him like, "Daddy, Daddy."
Right.
No, son, it's okay. It's okay. You're not my daddy. You're right. It's okay. Thanks, son.
So as you turn 33, are you at the point of success in your life where you thought you would be, or is things going in the trajectory of where you want to be?
If I look back when I was 22, when I first started, all I wanted was to do 150 shows a year. Like, I said that for my first show ever. Like, I was foreshadowing it. It was like, he's going to do 150 colleges a year. Put your hands together for Chris Jones. And I came on stage, and I've done that. And I'm sitting in a parking lot about to buy some legal weed in Washington State. And the new hypnotist who's replacing me with the roster just texted me, "Hey, I have a show on August 24th at this school you used to do. It's exciting." And I told my agents to book him. So I found my own replacement.
That's a big boy move, don't you think?
It's kind of a big, yeah. I mean, I had 10 years. What else am I going to do? Am I just going to keep doing the same colleges over and over? I want to travel abroad with my wife at the time. I want to travel and talk about social justice and things like that. I've seen America. I want to travel now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to teach. I've made some money. I've spent a lot of it. Taxes are never fair. It is what it is.
You know, you've mentioned teaching a couple of times, and this is our 8th podcast, so you've probably mentioned it at least 4 other times, and I know that when we've gone out and just hung out, that you talk about that teaching a lot. Are you doing anything toward reaching that goal?
I have it on my to-do list. I'm going to look at being an adjunct, and I did go to a Catholic high school in Chicago. I ran with their track team. And I told one of the teachers, "Hey, I'm still thinking about teaching." And he said, "Well, this school's pretty prestigious. They won't just hire you with no teaching experience." He said, "What he would suggest is I'm going to try to do is teach a summer program at a public school, add that to my resume, and just kind of move from there. I could teach at a community college. I could be adjunct at a private college in Chicago, but baby steps."
What do you want to teach, Chris?
World religions, anthropology, English, something that allows people like really to explore. Math, I wasn't good at math. Spanish, can't speak it too well. But English, here's a book. If you like that book, you might like this book. And if you like that author, I'm going to challenge you to read from a different gender. If you're a man, read something written by a woman. Like, it's a fun challenge. Anthropology, because I wanted to show how people have lived in the past, or how they live on the other side of the world. And world religions, again, because just because we believe this doesn't mean these people are wrong. And here are some people who might consider themselves Christians, but do this one thing that's very not Christ-like,
Mm-hmm. Does your
So
Catholic upbringing change that for you, or give you a different thought process? Because I was raised Catholic as well, and it's
and now
very
we're
it's
atheists.
very strict. It's very no. I still I believe in God. I just don't go to
No,
church.
no,
But I'm just saying
right.
that there's a very black and white type of a thought process when it comes to being Catholic. And if you're teaching
Yeah,
world religions, does that kind of go against your not moral code, but against what you were brought up with?
I think the cool thing about at least being raised in the Catholic Church that I was, we were allowed to question things.
Uh-huh.
I know there's some Christians who are like, you can never question God. Like, that's evil. But Judaism is like, question it, because then you'll learn more.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never had a hard time with that. Like the first year of high school, we had a priest and he taught us pretty much all the miracles that Moses did can be explained by science. He's like, okay, the firstborn could have died because of a genetic issue. That could have happened. Well, the water didn't turn to blood. It says the clay was red and it rained. It looked like all the waterways were blood. And then, of course, the frogs are going to come out because they can't, and the locusts are going to come out because of the frogs. And then, there's an eclipse. These things happen. Like, it's not divinity. It can be explained by science. But taking people out of slavery, that is remarkable.
Do you believe in miracles?
So, yeah, I do. Sometimes they can be grand, sometimes they can be small. I sat next to a lady on the airplane today who is a flight attendant, and she said that one of her coworkers barely missed a shooting, and they took cover, and they hid under tables, and they turned off the lights, and the only way they survived was to pretend like they weren't there. And they're hiding, and they hear the door open, and then the door shuts. And they think that they only survived because they held still like they weren't there. But the gunmen came into their room, the conference room they were hiding in. Would I call that a miracle? To the family, absolutely. Like to their friends, like their partners, like thank God, thank whoever, like they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
I called my mom less than a minute before she died, and I consider that a miracle. That's just a small thing. Like I was on the road and I was praying. I was like, hey, God, like I know my mom has cancer. If you make her suffer, I won't forgive you. And that's probably not how I'm supposed to talk to God. But God was like, all right, you owe me for this. And my mom didn't suffer. And she prayed I wouldn't miss a show because of her illness. And I tell you, I found out she had cancer. I performed. I found out she was very sick. I performed. I came home to see her. We got to talk a little bit. She went unresponsive. I hopped on the road. She passed away. I performed. And then I spoke at her wake, performed that morning, spoke at her funeral, and then I performed that night. I didn't have to reschedule but one gig because of her illness. So her prayer was I wouldn't miss work because she knew I loved my job. And I prayed she wouldn't suffer, so I consider those miracles.
Do you believe in the power of prayer, Chris?
Yes, because if you hold still when things are chaotic, you realize what you can control. And I think that's what prayer is. If you're maybe a Hindu, you can pray while you're doing yoga. You can do something active while you're walking. But the stillness of gaining control for yourself in your life, that's a big part of prayer.
Do you think?
Or asking for help, that's huge. Like, you're asking, saying, I can't do this by myself. Would someone please help me? That's a humbling experience. And you sometimes just need to be humble.
I agree. You find it weird that our conversations go from what, because you and I, we pre-talk before we do the podcast, and we say,
Yep.
and we kind of map out where we're going to go. And have we
You
ever?
might be doing that. I just talked to you, man. I mean, you're like, are you hungover? No, I'm so now because of birthday party shenanigans.
But
And
I'm actually
that's it.
I'm surprised by how, because we always go down the rabbit hole. We never talk about, I said I want to talk about birthdays and kind of go from there. But I mean, we always zigzag and go down some wormhole and pop up through some gopher hole and end up in end up in the water somewhere.
Well, like you were saying before, like you and I haven't stepped on each other's toes. I think I was saying this actually. I don't know where you fall politically, but it doesn't matter because in my perspective of you, you are progressive in terms of human dignity. And that's all I want. Like what you think about money and how the dollar should go to the economy, that doesn't bother me too much. But you want people to be seen as people and you treat them as people. That's really all I care about.
Why wouldn't you?
No, and so why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to pass an equality bill? Why wouldn't you want that?
Yeah.
Like, why?
Oh, I know. I had that conversation last night at work with somebody. I mean, we talked about that. We talked about that prior. I do want to ask you something though, because you asked me a question before we went on the podcast, and you said, how did you word it? Do you think you can plan your own destiny? Is that how you asked it, or something like that? Because you were thinking about me this morning, and I ended up texting you.
More about psychic stuff because I woke up super early and I thought about you and I was like, oh, Bob. And then you text and call. It was only because you told a joke about one of your friends who has a disability, a physical disability. And I was like, it was a sexual joke about a guy with a disability. It was funny, but I was just like, why did I think about this at 5 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
Is this how I'm going to start my day?
But the thing is that you met my friend, and he was there when I did it. And it was not a disrespectful joke. It was a
No. Like he laughed his ass off. I laughed my ass off.
Right.
You were talking about like everyone has their deck of cards, and you're dealt a hand, and no pun intended, his deck had a short hand in it.
Yeah, because he's got cerebral palsy and his hand doesn't go. Yeah, so
yeah,
but honestly, that's why Jason and I are such good friends. To be honest with you, because we were in JC's together, and I gave him shit like I gave everybody else shit, and everybody's like, well, "Why are you giving him shit?" Because he's a person.
I have to.
Because he's a person. Yeah. Why would I treat him any differently than I treat anybody else? And I think that's what the problem with the world is today, Chris, is that people put on kid gloves to talk to, this person, and different pair of gloves to talk to this person. That's bullshit. We need to all treat everybody as we treat everybody else, and the world would be a much better place. Don't you think so?
There are two things where I'm saying I can see two perspectives. Treat people the way you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
Until they tell you how they want to be treated.
Yeah. Yes. And bingo.
I would hold the door open for a man or a woman or a person who maybe is in a wheelchair. If when that person in the wheelchair says, "I don't need you to hold the door," now I know you want me to treat you in a certain way. I won't hold the door for you. Or if a woman says I can hold it for myself, cool, fine.
Right.
I will treat you the way I want to be treated until maybe we have a relationship. And I know, sweet mother-in-law of mine, she's like, honestly, I don't know what to call black people. Like, are they blacks? Are they African-American? I know they're not colored. I would never say that. But what do they want to be? And I was like, well, it really depends on the person. Like, some people hate the term mulatto. And some people are cool with it. And I don't even call myself black often. I say brown. Mm-hmm. And I got makeup one day from a makeup artist. She's like, "You're not even brown, you're yellow." I was like, "Thanks, ma'am."
She said, "You're yellow?"
I'm yellow. Yeah, it's like your pigment is yellow. And I was like, She wasn't wrong. She showed me the color scheme.
Right. Well, you are very. I mean, you are light. You are light-skinned black.
I'm light.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, let's go back to your mother-in-law's question then, because I say black. Is that wrong for me? Is that wrong for me to say that?
I think it's cool because you're not trying to be too PC.
Right.
I mean, if the officer stopped me and he's coming back, he was like, "We have a black male." It wouldn't be like, "We have an African American male." And I'm shit. Dave Matthews is African American. He came from Africa.
Uh-huh.
I call him a white guy. Nelson Mandela is an African, a South African.
Right.
He comes to America. He's not African American. He'd be black. He'd be a black South African. Or if you go to Canada, I don't know what they get called there. A black North African or black Canadian?
I don't know the answer to that.
African Canadian?
I'll tell you what, if you know the answer to that, BSwithBob@gmail.com.
Please, let us know.
Put on the
Drake, if you're listening, what do you call yourself?
Exactly. I have no idea. Chris Jones, how do people reach you? Where do we find out more information about the wonderful, giving man that you are?
You have my Gmail account, which that's numeral one word WORDCJ at Gmail. That's the best way. I think my website is hypnotistchrisjones.com.
Find entertainer and hypnotist Chris Jones at hypnotistchrisjones.com. The One Word Chris Jones Podcast, a podcast for higher production.